Welcome back in the place to be with the CBDC Assets Group. Thank you all for being a part of the group. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 60-minute hit piece on Brad Garlinghouse and crypto. Talk about a politicized video that didn't need to be. Okay, second, I'm going to go into the Bitcoin mission statement and the anti-government sentiment that they've been spewing for years and what's actually happening with Bitcoin and the government. And last but not least, got some feedback about the offline crypto issue. So stay tuned. Politicizing crypto. I don't know if you guys watched. I posted a link to the 60 Minutes interview with Brad Garlinghouse, but boy, they did a hit job on him, man. For older viewers who might not necessarily view all their information from Twitter or social media, I think there's a difference between Twitter and social media for the most part. The news tells you that Twitter is just hate speech, but I've come to realize that most of the information on Twitter I receive days in advance before news outlets, most social media sites, and water cooler talk. I'm 3 days past that because of the real-time information and the fact-checking on Twitter. Or I'm sorry, X. I keep calling it Twitter now. So I say all that to say that I didn't really fully understand. I know they're bad, but I didn't really fully understand how bad the mainstream media is. And knowing what I know about the 10,000 plus hours I put into researching XRP and Ripple, knowing what I know, watching that interview, it was just, I'm trying to be quiet because I was recording it. And the whole time I'm turning to my wife and I'm going, this guy's just telling lies. And here's the beautiful thing about X is that the community guidelines clearly checked that interview that they posted on 60 Minutes and stated that the misinformation that was given in that interview. They painted Brad Garlinghouse as a gunslinger who just wants people to gamble with their crypto money, and all he wants to do is get his agenda across. And I don't think that's true at all. And then they bring on some former SEC official, John Reed Clark. He's kind of a douchebag. And they got this guy on there lying about the crypto space, the SEC's enforcement actions. And he says there's no utility in crypto. Blows my mind. That somebody who claims, they bring this guy on as an expert and he has no comprehension of what the utility is. So I ask myself, why does this guy say there's no utility? Because he's pushing a narrative. And what is the narrative? What's the point of the narrative? The narrative, I believe, is to keep people out of crypto. They want to scare you. He goes on to say that it's using it in sex trafficking and all the negative things that are associated with it. Yet, in my opinion, the dollar has been associated with more crime than crypto could have even imagined to have ever been. And not only that, any crime that you commit, there's record of on crypto. That's what they don't say. Like, people are gonna see what you did. It doesn't just go away. So I don't understand the narrative. I don't understand why there's a push for the narrative. The only rational conclusion I can come to is that they don't want you to know. They don't want us to know. Okay, so this guy, John Reed Clark, he says that multiple judges were very clear on how these things were ruled as security. And that's not true. Judge Torres clearly stated that XRP was not a security. So just some perspective on how they're swaying the viewpoints, the belief. And then they did a hit piece at the end on crypto voters. And it was just bad. But anyway, they were cutting Brad Garlinghouse short, saying there's no auditing process in crypto. There's no documentation of the transactions. Like, dude, do you have any concept of what you're talking about? Is my question to him. I don't know. So I'm getting into this video right here of Senator Loomis talking about Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference and how the cheers from the crowd erupt when she starts talking about how Trump in the U.S. plan to spend to buy 200 something Bitcoin, and how that they plan to hold 10% of the global Bitcoin reserves in the U.S. And
This Bitcoin reserve that we're going to create will start with the 210,000 Bitcoin that President Trump just mentioned and pull it into a reserve stored in geographically diverse vaults. And that's only the beginning. Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply. And it will be held for a minimum of 20 years.
And the crowd just explodes. And all I can think about when I hear this is all of these Bitcoin maximalists who only preach Bitcoin. I guess you could say, I guess you could say I'm an XRP maxi. But the difference between the XRP people and the Bitcoin maxis is, in my opinion, is that the XRP people are a lot more educated and informed on what they're talking about versus the maxis. And this is an example. And this is why you have to really think about what's happening and really look into it. Because these people are you're cheering for Bitcoin to be held by the government, but yet these same people were talking shit about XRP for the past 3 years because it's a bank coin. And then we're anti-government at Bitcoin. We're anti-bank. You guys feel your bank coin, it's bullshit. The reason I chose XRP because I'm not stupid. I see the connections and I realize that if you go against the banks, they bring out the tanks. It's that simple. So you can say what you want to say, but at the end of the day, they've got an ETF for Bitcoin. It's the most popular ETF of all time. So, but the point is, it's institutional investing. Now, again, so you're against institutions and you're against the government, but yet now both of those things are your biggest pillars in your community and in your network, right? And here's where I again try to educate everybody who listens to my channel. If you really want to know, it's simple. Go read the white paper. The Bitcoin white paper it explains the plan. It's meant to be used as a transactional asset to replace the dollar. It's meant to be used for transactions, but its technology doesn't allow that to happen. So now they've created a new narrative for it and say that it's digital gold. And it can be, it might be, it probably will be, truth be told, but I just don't trust anything that doesn't have a compliance department or that doesn't have a customer support department, because that lets me know right there in my mind that somebody's trying to get away with something. Just some food for thought. I don't know. You think about what you want. You do what you want to do with it. I just personally, I could be wrong. I could be completely foolish. I'm not into Bitcoin. Shocking, right? I know. Okay, last but not least, I got some feedback on these public-private keys. Now,
symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Let's first take a look at symmetric encryption to understand why asymmetric encryption was created. To do that, let me introduce you to Alice and Bob. Alice has a sensitive document that she wants to share with Bob. She uses an encryption program to protect her document with a password or passphrase that she chooses. She then sends the encrypted document to Bob. However, Bob cannot open this message because he doesn't know the passphrase that Alice used to encrypt the document. In other words, he doesn't have the key to open the lock. Now comes a real problem. How does Alice share this passphrase securely with Bob? Sending it through email is risky because others might find the passphrase and use it to decrypt any messages between Alice and Bob. This is exactly the kind of problem that asymmetric encryption intends to solve. It is comparable to a mailbox on the street. The mailbox is exposed to anyone who knows its location. We can say that the location of the mailbox is completely public. Anyone who knows the address can go to the mailbox and drop in a letter. However, only the owner of the mailbox has a key to open it up and read the messages. So let's now go back to technical details. When using asymmetric encryption, both Alice and Bob have to generate a key pair on their computers. A popular and secure way for doing this is by using the RSA algorithm. This algorithm will generate a public and private key that are mathematically linked to each other. Public keys can be used to encrypt data, and only the matching private key can be used to decrypt it. Even though the keys are linked together, they cannot be derived from each other. In other words, if you know someone's public key, you cannot derive his private key. If we retake our mailbox example, then the mailbox's address would be the public key, something that everyone is allowed to know. The owner of the mailbox is the only one who has the private key, and that is needed to open up the mailbox. Let's now take a look at how Alice and Bob can use asymmetric encryption to communicate securely with each other. They start by exchanging their public keys. Bob gives his public key to Alice, and Alice gives her public key to Bob. Now Alice can send her sensitive document again. She takes the document and encrypts it with Bob's public key. She then sends the file to Bob, who uses his private key to unlock the document and read it. Because they use asymmetric encryption, only Bob is able to decrypt the message. Not even Alice can decrypt it because she doesn't have Bob's private key. The strength and security of the asymmetric encryption now relies on Alice and Bob to keep their private keys well protected. If an attacker steals Alice's private key, it can be used to decrypt all messages that are intended for Alice. However, the attacker cannot decrypt messages that were sent by Alice because that requires Bob's private key. Asymmetric encryption is used in a lot of places where security really matters. You might not be aware of it, but every time you visit a secure website via HTTPS, you're actually using asymmetric encryption. It's also being used to securely send emails with the PGP protocol. And one last example, Bitcoin also uses asymmetric encryption to make sure that only the owner of a money wallet can withdraw or transfer money from it. So now you know how asymmetric encryption works and what the differences are between asymmetric and symmetric encryption.